Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well after the weekend. I am going to finally start some new material with you guys today. We're going to start into chapter 8. I did give you guys all of the notes and the worksheets from chapter 8. So hopefully you hung on to those. That was actually the last day that we met. Um, so I am going to make sure that these are the PDFs are of the notes and the worksheets are still posted on my Google post too. So let's get started. We're going to talk about writing polynomials in standard form and then adding and subtracting polynomials. So the first thing we need to do is talk a little bit about what a polynomial is and kind of the way that we discuss things. So the first one, as you can see there, it's listed as a monomial. The reason why that's a monomial is there is only one term, 5x. Now, you might say that 5 and x, there's two different things there. But as long as there's multiplication or division separating numbers and variables, that's still considered one term. Now, where you get into having multiple terms, if you look at the next one that says binomial right here, is they are separated by this plus sign right there. Anytime you have items, variables or numbers separated by plus or minus, that is what gives you more than one term. So in this case, the prefix bi right at the beginning there, bi, bi as in bicycle means two wheels. Binomial means it has two different terms. The first term is going to be your 2x squared, and then the second term is the plus 7. The third one that we have right here is called a trinomial. And a trinomial, tri is like tricycle. There's three. There are three terms here. The first term is x cubed. The next one is the minus 10x. And then the last term would be the plus 1. So that's called a trinomial. All right, so not too bad so far. Now, moving on to the next page, the degree of a monomial. So this word degree right here, the degree is the sum of the exponents of all of the variables within a term, which I'm going to show you. The degree of a polynomial is the greatest degree of any term in the polynomial. So that will make a little bit more sense once we start categorizing these monomials by their degrees and these polynomials by their degree. Looking here, if you have a degree 0, that would be a constant. An example of a degree 0 term would be something like 3. That's just a constant. It's just a number. Now, when you have a degree 1, that is going to be something like x to the first power. That is called a linear term. The next one, degree 2, is if you had an x squared, that's called a quadratic, and you can see so on and so forth down the list. If the degree is 3, that's called a cubic. That would be like x cubed. A fourth degree is called a quartic. A fifth degree is quintic. And then beyond fifth degree, they just say sixth degree, seventh degree, and so on. All right, so um, couple more things. Standard form of a polynomial, they are when the terms are written in order from greatest to least degree. Now, I think we discussed this a little bit earlier this year when I said about variables, they should be alphabetized, but then they should also be in order from their highest exponent down to the lowest. And then the leading coefficient in standard form is the coefficient of the first term, and you'll figure out the first term based on what the highest power is. Here's an example of greatest degree and leading coefficient. So the first thing to look at is the leading coefficient. This leading coefficient is 4. The reason why the 4 is the leading coefficient and maybe not the -5 or the 2 or the 7, the reason why the 4 is the variable that is attached to that is x to the third. And if you look through the entire polynomial, there is no variable that has a higher power than the x to the third. So if you look, you go by your powers on your x. First, we have x to the third, then we have x squared, then we have x to the first, And then if you notice, there is no x, and that's where your constant comes into play. So in order to put something into standard form, you need to order it by the highest power or degree of the variable. So you can see it goes 3, 2, 1, and then there's none. All right, so let's try a few of these. I've got 4 example problems for you, and then I'll let you loose and to try some practice problems on your own. So let's go ahead and do the first one. You can see the first one, we have a 3x squared, and then we have a plus 4x to the fifth, and then minus 7x. Now, looking through that, you can see this one is the highest power. That has the highest degree. It's degree 5. So we are going to list that one first, 4x to the fifth power. So we can cross that one off as we use them. That way we make sure we write them all down. Looking for the next one, you can see that the 3x squared is the next highest. Now, one thing to keep of note, this 3 is a positive 3 because there's nothing there. So you're actually going to write plus 3x squared. And we've used that term, so we cross it off, and the only one left is minus 7x. And so what we have right here that I just underlined, that is in standard form. And you can see it goes from the highest power to the lowest. All right, moving on to number 2. Once again, I'm looking in here. I should have backed up for a second. Actually, I'm going to erase a little bit. We've already marked these. So let me talk about this the number 1 one more time. This also would be called, you can see it's a fifth degree, and there are 1, 2, 3 separate terms. And so we would refer to this as a quintic trinomial. And that means quintic means it has the highest power of 5, and trinomial means it has 3 terms. Okay, so moving on to number 2. If you look at this, first thing to notice is there are 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So that, because it's 4 terms, anything beyond 3 terms, we call it trinomial, and after trinomial, we call them polynomials, poly meaning many. So this has 4 terms, so that would actually just be considered a polynomial. The other name that we have to make sure we call it, though, is the highest power, and the highest power right there is a 4th degree, which is also known as a quartic. So this would be called a quartic polynomial. All right, let's get them ordered. Starting with the highest degree, you can see the negative 2y to the fourth, this term right there. So we're going to take that and we're going to write negative 2y to the fourth. So we got rid of that one, followed by this one right here, which is negative 6y to the third. Cross that one off. Then we have a positive plus 5y right there, cross that off. And then finally, we have our minus 9. We're going to write that right there. And there you go. That is in standard form. Goes from y to the fourth, y to the third, y to the first, and then the constant. It is okay for them to jump. Notice there's no y squared in there. That is fine. It's not a big deal that there's nothing there. All right, moving on to number 3. This one, once again, has 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So we would classify this. There is a 4th power right there. So that would be called a quartic. And then because it has 4 terms, it would be called a polynomial. So that is a quartic polynomial. The highest power is 4x to the 4th. Cross that off. Followed by negative 2x squared. Cross that one off. Then your minus 3x. Cross that one off. And then finally, plus 8. One thing to keep in mind, I'm going to show you, erase this for a second. If you look over here at this 8 right there, notice there's no sign in front of the 8. So that means it's a positive 8. That's why right here we put plus 8. All right, guys, last example problem for the lecture. Next one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms in this one, 5 different terms. So anything 4 or more is called a polynomial. The highest power is 6, so this would be called a sixth degree polynomial. So let's get started by ordering them. The highest degree is this minus 7y to the sixth, so we're going to write negative 7y to the sixth, cross that off. Then we're going to do this one right here, which is the minus 5y to the third, cross that off. Then we have this one, minus 2y squared, cross that off. Now this one's a little tricky, but that's just a 1y. It's a plus 1y, or you can just write plus y. Cross that off. And lastly, we have this one right here, this plus 10. And there you go. It's ordered. Highest power to lowest power. That is, again, called standard form. All right, guys. I hope that made sense. Your homework is going to come from the 8-1 worksheet. You're going to complete 1 through 14, which I will post under your assignments on Google Classroom. Have a great day, guys. Take care.